Thanks, Steve. So yeah, I'm now the one that's watching the CoinGeek presentations in London with my head in my hands going, he said we deliver what? Yep, that's part of my job now, but this was really the hackathon. So I think I'm, apart from a new definition of the graveyard shift of presenting at 8:45 on a Friday evening, so I shall try not to be too long. It's also a fairly light-hearted look at all the other entrants we've had in the hackathon. We'll try and look at a little bit of, there we go, we got one. A little bit of what we did and some of those entrants that didn't quite make the final, but I'll try and look at them a little bit more from the, what were they trying to achieve? Is there anything similar in what you guys are trying to look at? Does that spark any other ideas off? Is there any conversations that starts off? Because we were just blown away. We were blown away by the number of people who took part, by the quality of the interaction that happened. So this ran over the 1st May bank holiday weekend, 48 hours that was set up. So we had a whole range of technical support, a number of people in this room from nChain were involved, as well as people with the Bitcoin Association, monitoring the Telegram channel. There was about 100 of the people sort of actively involved in that Telegram channel, constantly asking each other questions, some of which we answered, many of which they answered for each other as well, which was great to see. We gave them a brief around onboarding. So traditional kind of view of onboarding, how do we help get people into this industry, into using Bitcoin? But also we tried to say, in particular, can you start to look at the developers, the development community as well? Can we give them tools that would make it easier for people to start using and developing on BSV? I've got a bit of stats in there. Some picked that part of the thread, and others didn't. Others stayed with the sort of more traditional view. But it was a whole load of interesting entrants. Hopefully, a number of you saw some of the presentations, perhaps, or maybe some of you were there as well in Toronto last week. Quite a hefty prize in the end, with the price going up at just the right time for that, which was rather nice. So summary of the entries, we got it down to, well, 36 projects. I tried to do a bit of sort of sticking them into categories as to give you a bit of a flavor of the type of stuff that got produced. I'd say the vast majority stuck at that kind of B2C sort of market. They were consumer apps. They were trying to get at how do you help people do something interesting, but just based within the BSV sort of theme. There was a whole load of ones trying to target people like advertisers, merchants, and the B2B sort of market. We had a reasonable chunk of dev tools, some quite interesting ones, which I'll cover specifically in a minute. A few that were slightly harder to categorize almost, but there was a few that were right in the sort of sweet spot around some of the stuff we're doing with MetaNet and the protocols around that, and how can you begin to make that easier to access on your own computer. There were a couple of ones trying to work out how do you put Netflix onto BSV, and would you want to, and trying to experiment with some of the ideas there, and quite a few actually that kind of fell into the IoT sort of space, which is a really interesting use case. Likewise, I mean, I've kind of probably gone over most of that. So the finalists, I'm not going to dwell on either of these three because all the presentations are available on CoinGeek and through the CoinGeek stuff of the Bitcoin Association. They were great, fun, great projects that were produced. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing where they go. I think we're already looking at using some of them as well, if I understand correctly. So I'm going to try and run through maybe 3, 4, I can't quite remember how many I picked out, with a little bit of detail, and then I'll kind of summarize some of the other ones that are in there, and I'll wait to Darren to tell me I'm taking too long, and then I'll stop talking so much about them. So the first one I was going to look at was MetaVibe. So this made it, if I remember right, this made it into our top 5, I think we got down to a top 5 for this one, but didn't quite make it into the top 3. So this was very much looking at how did you make things more accessible, more local in terms of the information that you're trying to access. So how did you almost combine augmented reality with where you are within a location, with data and information that might be available around you that merchants could put on, users could put on, in terms of this is great, rate these sort of things, and how did you bring that data together in a accessible space of where you are right now, rather than trying to search the entire internet for how did you get at that information. It was quite an ambitious project, but they'd gone right through some of their technical specs, as well as producing some screenshots and various bits and pieces. They gave some of the technology they used, so you could start to look at, say, the augmented reality, and how did you start to look at where you were and then extend it out further in terms of engaging that. They used a whole range of different technologies to try and make it work. I think that's a picture of them trying to add some more data onto their little MetaNet demo. MetaVibe demo. But that was a really interesting one. It felt like a massive idea with real potential, but it was a how did you get people using that? What might that go through? Yeah. It's a great idea. It's a great project. I hope you carry on with it. It was, I think top 5. I'm pretty sure it got down to the top 5. So the next one I was going to talk about. This was a really great idea. I think we struggled with understanding a little bit with a few of the entries of there were clearly big projects that people were already working on, and we were then asking them to kind of carve out something that would fit for the hackathon window. I think that was very much the case with these guys, where they were trying to produce, they've already got the gate to chain idea with these boxes that allow them to link things like water meters and link it all through, so that they can start to use the blockchain to link payments to usage, so that in this example, the one they tried to put together for the hackathon, that if your wallet ran out, your water would turn off. So you linked the whole thing together. It looks like a really great idea, huge potential in the full idea. I think we struggled a little bit with their entry for the hackathon, which is why it perhaps didn't go all the way through. But if you look at what they're trying to get at, it looks great. And I had to give them a bit of credit just for using Jimmy's Villa on their website as to quite how the solution worked. So I think if I understood it correctly, they're basically trying to link all of the components on the chain with supplying water from the reservoir to Jimmy's Villa, connecting in with the existing IoT technologies using things like LoRaWAN, and all of those linked through the blockchain, such that when payments can flow instantly using the blockchain, water flows to Jimmy's Villa. He can be billed instantly. If he's not paying his bill, or there's not money in his wallet, then his water can get turned off, and the admin burden across that entire chain reduces significantly. And it looks like there's a few other use cases that they were looking at, and as well as trying to open up their protocol, if I remember rightly, they're trying to open up their protocol that anyone can come and develop on it. This is the point when someone says, no, that's not what we're doing at all. That's something completely different. But that was a really interesting idea. Didn't quite make it through. Bitmap, I'll talk about briefly. So I'm pretty sure this was the other member of our top 5 that didn't quite make it through to the final. But it was a really neat application they produced. So this was about digital legacy. So if you wanted to protect your Facebook password, say, on the blockchain in the event that you die, what they did was you'd give 4 trusted friends. You'd sign them up to the Bitmap application. They would create their wallet, and then if 2 of them said, I want to recover that digital legacy that person's left when they've died, it would then use Shamir's secret sharing to recombine it and let them recover that data that was in there. And they had that fully up and working. We were playing with it in the pub one evening after some of the judging had been going on, and it was all there, all working as a little proof of concept, and it felt like it had real legs as a way of making that enabled and easy for people to do. Final one I'll look at in a little bit of detail was Ubiquity, which was looking at adding point-to-point payment channels on top of connection to the blockchain, if I remember rightly. So it was starting to work out different ways in which you could have live payment channels flowing between two people, and gave a protocol for how that could be built up. And you can tell from my hesitation that that is about the level I understood what they were doing, unless they're in the room. Good, that's what it did then. Right, that's lost. I was going to look at in any detail. I mean, obviously these slides will be available to you. I pulled these 6 out in particular because these were 6 that concentrated specifically on developer tools. So we had a few people, a polyglot that went through to the final, which was all about Python access to things. We had a Dart SV library. We had Bitmonkey that was looking at browser extensions. We had a C#.NET library as well. We had something trying to kick off a new project and a framework to kick off a project. We had Bitstrap that was quite complicated but something really powerful in terms of how did you sort of bootstrap various downloads and things like that to other things and create payment channels without people necessarily knowing each other. There was a whole world of stuff out there, and I think it's something that we'll be looking at with the Bitcoin Association around how do we make this stuff open to you guys if you're interested, and keep that group in contacting with each other if you want to do that. Final couple of slides. I'm not going to run through all these in detail, but I wanted to kind of name check everyone who'd entered. So these were some of the other projects I haven't sort of pulled out. If I pick out maybe one. So you can see we had a couple of the categories, some of the stuff on IoT. That was a file system one that was around MetaNet. This was a way of dealing with some of the gaming data and connecting that together, and how would you do some of the esports stuff. We had an on-chain mail application trying to deal with some of the anti-spam stuff. There was some lovely, simple applications created around things like Send Bitcoins, the Forever Faucet, Gift SV, that were all around different ways of sending people Bitcoin, of onboarding them into the system through URLs, through simple mechanisms that people would understand and then be able to access. Last one. We had a couple of the movie ones in here. There was a scratch pad that was again, it was another really nice application produced in the hack that let people collaborate and share on ideas, with those ideas that they might be creating together in their scratch pad, then recorded at the time they made those contributions back to the blockchain. So you had some record of when things were invented, if you needed such a thing from an IP perspective and things like that. But it was a fully complete application that was all working. So what next? This is generally the final slide. We're going to do it again in the run-up to the next CoinGeek conference. We'd love to see more entries there, more of you there. Same again, carry on, please do. Not quite fully confirmed the dates yet, but probably mid-August is when we're going to be looking at. So obviously don't go on holiday in August. Be fine, just do this instead. And I think that's about it for the hackathon, other than my view to say thank you to everybody, especially someone in the room who actually took part. Thank you, and look forward to seeing more of you there.